대사님 나오셨습니까?
안녕하십니까. 대사님 안녕하십니까.
오늘 더 젊어 보이시는 것 같습니다.
Sudan Business Seminar. Today, we are gathered here to promote our understanding of the business environment of up-and-coming market in Sudan and also understand the business and legislative infrastructure in the country of Sudan. And this meeting has been hosted by KOTRA and Korea Africa Foundation. We are joined by two ministers from Sudan, His Excellency Ibrahim Al-Sheikh of the Ministry of Industry of Sudan and Minister Al-Mahdi Mohammed Ibrahim, the Ministry of Investment and International Cooperation. And we are going to be listening to the two keynote presentations from the ministers, and in the first presentation, we are going to talk about the general aspects of Korea-Sudan business cooperation. In the second presentation, we are going to talk about a successful case study of Korea-Sudan business cooperation. And after the presentations, we're going to have a Q&A session. And if you have any questions, please post them in the chatting window, and we'll answer them during the Q&A session. Before we begin the presentation, we would like to invite President Yeo Eun-gi of Korea Africa Foundation for opening remarks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. His Excellency Al-Hadi Mohammad Ibrahim, the Minister of Investment and International Cooperation of Sudan, His Excellency Ibrahim Al-Sik, the Minister of Industry of Sudan, Honorable Ambassador Lee Sang-jung of Republic of Korea to Sudan, distinguished guests joining us virtually. We are very pleased to host Sudan-Korea Business Seminar today with the Ministry of Investment and International Cooperation and also the Ministry of Industry of Sudan. I would like to express my special gratitude to everyone attending today, especially to Director Kim Jae-woo of Kotra Khartoum, Sudan, who is joining us virtually, and GMC, the General Medicine a representative company of Korea-Sudanese Economic Cooperation. Thank you once again from the bottom of my heart. Sudan is referred to as the breadbasket of the world, with a population of over 40 million and vast territory and economy of more than 100 billion US dollar. Also, within the African continent, Sudan is strategically positioned as it is located at the intersection of Central Africa inland to east and west, connecting Egypt and sub-Saharan Africa to north and south. Since the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1977, Korea and Sudan have steadily developed the bilateral ties. Right after the establishment of diplomatic relations, Korea actively advanced into manufacturing, home appliance, and pharmaceuticals, but there was a period of stagnations and difficulties due to various factors such as the U.S. economic sanctions. However, since 2017, Sudan became an emerging new market thanks to the continuous economic reform efforts of the Sudan transitional government. Now, once again, we are at an important juncture to expand the horizon of cooperation with Sudan to more diverse fields such as mining, agriculture, and infrastructure development, going beyond the fields that we have already entered. On June 29th, the Deputy Minister for Economic Affairs of the Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs visited Sudan to attend the Korea-Sudan Business Partnership Forum. Given the COVID-19 pandemic, the participation of many people from government, business manifest the great anticipations and interest for revitalization of Korean-Sudanese relationship. The Korea-Sudan Business Seminar is held as the friendly ties are blossoming while we are creating a favorable atmosphere. I hope today's seminar can help Korean companies' understanding of Sudanese market and thus enable them to take a more active approach toward the Sudan. The Korea African Foundation will also do its best to play a larger role in that process. Ladies and gentlemen, there is an African proverb, quote unquote, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I'm confident that we can become partners, achieving mutually beneficial cooperation while the future of common prosperity that everyone envies in a difficult COVID-19 pandemic situation. Finally, I'd like to express my gratitude once again to two ministers who have come a long way from Khartoum, Sudan to Seoul today and also the business delegation. Above all, thank you once again to all of you who are joining us virtually with a great interest in their busy schedule. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Yeo Eun-gi of Korea Africa Foundation, for the welcoming remarks. Now we are going to invite Ambassador Lee Sang-jung, Ambassador of Korea to Sudan, for congratulatory remarks. We would like to apologize in advance for any potential interruptions in the internet connection. I'm Lee Sang-jung, Ambassador of Korea to Sudan, and I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. I would like to also thank President Yeo Eun-gi of Korea Africa Foundation for organizing today's seminar. Sudan has put an end to the 30-year-old dictatorship through civil revolution, and the government and people have jointly established a new administration. And last year, Sudan has been removed from the list of terrorist sponsoring nations. So Sudan is going through a lot of progress, making a lot of reforms in various parts of the society. And thanks to the support from various countries around the world and IMF and Africa, Sudan's debt has been removed to a significant level, and Sudan has excellent natural environment as well as a very young and energetic population. Sudanese government is working very hard to attract foreign investment. I believe this is the window of opportunity for Korean companies to make their investment in Sudan. Korean embassy in Sudan is going to actively support Korean businesses in their efforts to make investment in Sudan. I look forward to working with various Korean businesses in Sudan. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. And we are joined by two ministers from Sudan. First of all, we would like to invite His Excellency Ibrahim Al-Sik, Minister of Industries from Sudan, for the first keynote presentation.
Ambassador Won-ki Leo, the President of the Korean Africa Foundation, ladies and gentlemen who attend this business seminar, on behalf of Sudan government, allow me to express my gratitude to Korea Africa Foundation for organizing this important business seminar, which planned to discuss the future economic cooperation between Sudan and Korea by identifying the common prospective field and describing environment of investment that may encourage and attract the visitors to come and invest in New Sudan. The relation between Sudan and Korea started in 1976, and the diplomatic mission were exchanged in 1977. Since then, the relations between the two countries steadily progressed. The famous Korean company was the first company that invested in Sudan. They invest in so many different fields, such as textile industry, tires, roads construction, and hotel management. LC and Samsung electronic productions were familiar to Sudanese families decades ago. We are looking forward to see the Korean factories establish their own branches in our country that neighboring so many African countries. This means Sudan can be focal distributor to Central Africa and to East and South Africa. One of the most important prospective sector is the textile industry. On this going summer season, we aggregate more than 1 million Fadan in Blue Nile State and 200,000 Fadan at a Jazeera scheme. Instead of exporting raw cotton, we prefer to put value added and manufacture the cotton. The Korean textile companies had a great experience in this field, and the EU company itself operated Sudanese textile factory earlier 1990s. Korea was developed rapidly within short time. This will not be possible if they did not rely completely on SMEs industries, supported by vocational training centers. We are very impressed by the Korean experience on this field. We find it one of the great success stories. We want to share this great experience with you, hoping to supply us with the machines and know-how and build to us the vocational centers as you did in 1998 through Korean International Cooperation Agency. Our existing industry suffers from shortage of power energy. The power we have now did not exceed. The power we have not exceed 2,300 megawatt. This represents only 1/3 of our actual needs. We used to generate power by the most common type of hydroelectric power, uses dams by storing water and generating power, also by thermal generation. We used these types of generation becomes very expensive according to the bill of fuel and maintenance. So we want to go towards green energy through solar and wind. Sudan is characterized by high production of livestock. Our animal wealth is about 250,000 million heads. This is a high potential for investment in full meat processing industry and leather. So we call Korean companies to come and invest in this profitable sector. Sudan is a agro-industrial country. To satisfy this definition, we need you to come and invest in fertilizers, agro-industrial equipments, machines, tractors, harvesters, and so on. Rock phosphate is available at so many districts and states. Utilization of this phosphate requires a huge financial resources that is not available in Sudan. Manufacturing fertilizers will help a lot means crucial to our agricultural country. Finally, I must refer to the recent economic reforms taken by the government. First, we remove subsidies on petroleum and diesel, the move which brings fuel prices in line with import cost that is save the government several millions of dollars per year. One of the latest packages of reforms in accordance with IMF staff monitoring program have been introduced to promote economic stabilization and to create more physical space for social spending. So helping to build up the country foreign exchange. Fuel subsidies has encouraged large scale of smuggling and were a huge drain on the budget, contribution to a large deficit that has to be covered by printing of money, thereby causing high inflation. The impact of lifting subsidies has been cushioned by the family support program as social safety net schemes. Exchange rate unification has reduced the scope of corruption, opened the door for immigrant Sudanese to begin challenging their remittances through the formal banks. Unification and liberalization of the exchange rate and increase its unification and liberalization of the exchanging rate and increase in electricity tariffs. Sudan has more than 50 billion external debt. Sudan reached the heavy decision point and the debt relief process began. Sudan has already cleared its debt to the World Bank and IMF. And today, the President of the World Bank will visit Sudan and have a speech to the world from Sudan. The World Bank promised to loan Sudan $2 billion from the next year. Sudan is also trying to create a more enabling business environment, having enacted laws on investment and public-private partnership and establishment of these necessary reforms put Sudan economy and public finance on sustainable path. Sudan used to be one of the few countries with an entirely Islamic banking system. But Sudanese banks are now able to operate a conventional banking window, which will make lending cheaper and widen the range of banking products available to increase foreign investors' confidence. Sudan has huge untapped potential land, water of the Blue Nile and White Nile, abundant extractive resources, including gold and approximately two important markets, such as the Gulf and African market. There is a huge scope for modernization, agricultural, and increasing volume-added production. and a great need for significant investment in integrated infrastructure in strategic areas such as digital transformation and renewable energy. The Axel Van Wereld Bank Managing Director of Operation said that we stand ready now to support the Sudanese in their efforts to build a strong economy that reduces poverty, deliver prosperity, and build a sustainable, peace, better future. This is the current economic situation now in Sudan. And I think we need the government of Korea and the businessmen who are attending this seminar and listening to me to take all that I said seriously and come to Sudan and find out the truth. And I'm sure they will find a lot of chances to invest in Sudan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Ibrahim Al-Sheikh. Thank you for sharing the various useful information about the Sudanese business environment. Now we are going to invite Minister Al-Hadi Mohamed Ibrahim, Minister of Investment and International Cooperation of Sudan, for the second keynote presentation.
His Excellency Won Ki Liu, President of Korean African Foundation, His Excellency Ambassador Lee in Sudan, who is following us in this seminar, officials and honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me first of all thank the government of Republic of Korea and the Korean African Foundation for this special invitation, which I believe it will strengthen and consolidate our bilateral relations and enhance joint ventures and businesses between our private sectors in both countries. In more than 3 decades, the Sudanese people had suffered from a dictatorship regime that had burned most of the regions of the country in a civil war, resulted in displacing people and condemned with war crimes and crimes against humanity, and lastly led Sudan to be listed in the state-sponsored terrorism. The Sudanese stunned the world with the glorious December Revolution of 2019, which peacefully took a new approach to people's struggles against or towards freedom, peace, justice, and the only option and the glorious motto of this revolution, which makes an appeal constantly burning to correct any deviation or retreating until it reaches its goal and achieves its objectives. It is guarded with the power of living revolution of youth and the strong will of the people. Here, we must salute the martyrs of the revolution who gave their lives for the sake of their homeland. The international community welcomed with great admiration, and appreciation the revolution of the people of the Sudan and commended the transformation and the reforms undertaken by the government, led by the Prime Minister, Dr. Abdullah Hamdok. These reforms are presented by unifying the exchange rate, lifted subsidies from energy, reduced master budget deficit, reduced government expenditure, and reduced the level of inflation. The remarkable achievement in the macroeconomic indicators can be represented by the following. In the side of stabilizing the exchange rate, the exchange rate in June 2021 is 441 SDG, while the exchange rate in September, after 3 months, in September 2021, is 439, almost reduced by 2 SDGs. In the side of our exports had been increased by almost in the first 6 months, that is in June, for example, 2020 compared with June 2021. January to June 2021, 2020 is almost 1.4 billion, while in January up to June 2021 is 2.53 billion, an increment of 69%. In the side of borrowing from the central bank, that is borrowing to cover the deficit of the budget, our borrowing in 2020 in the whole year is about 200 billion. This had been money printed from the central bank in order to cover the deficit in the budget, while in the 6 months in January to June 2021, the only amount that had been borrowed from the central bank is 35 billion, almost 1/7 of the total amount withdrawn in the whole year last year. In the side of debt relief, that Sudan has enjoyed a relief of debt by IMF and World Bank amounted to 28 billion, while the Paris Club debt relief is 14 billion. In total, about 42 billion had been immediately relieved, and this had been done after the Sudan has reached the decision point, and now Sudan is enjoying an SDR, which is almost $800 million. These are coming from IMF. Inflation had dropped about 35%. Inflation in July, 422%, while in August, inflation is 387%. On the peace process side, the government signed a peace agreement with the Revolutionary Front, the major rebel group. This agreement had peace-sharing leaders participate in the transitional government in all levels and effectively added value to the stability and influenced other rebels to come and negotiate with the government. We have made necessary arrangements to create a conducive environment in an investment climate to attract investors to Sudan. We also started the internal reform in the ministry. This can clearly be seen in the task carried out with several internal procedures in our ministry and other measures and reforms that had been put in place. We have also put in place and approved the necessary documentation and controls to improve and facilitate investor services by preparing a guide for an investor and a guide for procedures and a promising Sudan, which have a list of investment opportunities projects. We have begun to prepare the investment map in cooperation with the Sudanese Space Authority, which has completed the GIS-based map. Some maps of the states had already been completed and incorporated in the investment map. The only thing that is remaining is to finish the other states. In the site of the one-window shop or one-stop shop facility, the ministry started doing and rehabilitating the building, the main building for the ministry, in order to start doing investment from just one place. We have also longing for completing all these things in mid-June 2022. In the field of legislation reform that we have already, as my colleague Ibrahim mentioned, is that we have put in place a new law for encouraging investment and a new law for public-private partnership, and that also we have making a dual system in our banking system, parallelly with the Islamic system. Anti-money laundering act also had been passed. Anti-terrorism reward act had also been, and anti-corruption act, all these acts had been completed and passed by the parliament. Now, it has had the greatest impact on the arrival of a lot of investors, a number of investors in Sudan in the past period, and several meeting us in the ministry asking for investment opportunities, as well as ongoing meetings with ambassadors, businessmen, and delegations of businessmen from brotherly Arab countries and foreign countries that are expressed their willingness to invest in Sudan. In addition to the number of business forums that had been made in Khartoum, one of them is the Korean Business Forum in July, and that the business forum that had been made in Khartoum in August, that is the Saudi Arabia and Sudanese Business Forum. This has resulted in signing a number of agreements in the field of mining, energy, electricity, agriculture, and livestock production. The Ministry of Investment had also prepared a number of projects in 6 vital economic sectors, which represent a high priority and an investment opportunities with high economic potentials. These projects can be viewed in different sectors: energy and electricity sector, mining, agriculture, livestock, indigo and marine fish products, infrastructure, and urban development projects. Transportation, in addition to transportation, communication and digital transformation, these are projects needed in the sake of enabling our investors who is coming to Sudan to furnish and to contact their projects in the remote area. Industry in Sudan has a great potential and progress during the last 50 years. Agro industry, textile, oilseeds, poultry, and food production had started earlier. Other successful fields such as pharmaceutical companies, sugar, and automotive industries were introduced by the private sector and contributed much in the Sudanese economy and showed a substantial return on capital employed and considered as high profit generation projects. Korea had direct trade relations with Sudan since 1976, before the establishment of the diplomatic relations. The President of the Chamber of Commerce in the 2 countries discussed an agreement on economic cooperation between the 2 countries in February 1983 in order to facilitate the promotion of trade between Sudan and Korea. They agreed to promote effective contracts for business trade missions, experts in trade fields, and to exchange information and expansion in trade. It is an important point that this agreement was reached especially between the private sector organizations. Some Korean companies had a very successful experience with the Sudanese private public sector, such GMC, Sudan, Giat, LG, Samsung, and the other Korean companies. The Ministry of Investment and International Cooperation highly encourages such kinds of joint ventures and gives all the facilities and promotion to the investors. Here, I would like to invite more Korean companies such as Daewoo and Hyundai to invest in a new assembly lines in agricultural equipment in Sudan, which had a very variant market and highly profitable. And this will actually potentially needed by more farmers in Sudan. In addition to these investments, we recommend downstream industries that can really add value to the economy and minimize Sudanese exports in raw material forms. Industries for Arabic gum, for example, sesame, groundnuts, sorghum, and many other agricultural products open a new avenue for the Korean companies to invest in this field. Ladies and gentlemen, the stated policy of the government of Sudan is to support and empower the private sector to lead the development, create a climate and investment environment to make real partnership in production and projects in different fields, focusing on value-added chains to maximize exports and gradually replace imports. Our message to this seminar is that we are continuing our economic reforms, attracting investment, improving the environment, encouraging the entrepreneurship, and supporting the private sector. We will continue to present our promising investment opportunities and possibilities for building partnership with gainful equations so that Sudan could become a strategic stock of local, regional, and international industry and food security. In conclusion, we assure the Korean investors and the Korean companies that, and also the venture capitalists at the local and foreign level, that our approach is transparency, credibility, integrity, and rule of law. We have given ourselves a very good oath to bring Sudan back to play its natural and avant-garde role among the different nations. Thank you very much for your good listening.
Thank you very much, Minister Al-Hadi Mohamed Ibrahim. Minister has talked about various investment opportunities and business environment in Sudan. Now we are going to invite Director Pan Yong-woo from GMC, CFO of GMC. And because of the internet interruption, I would like to apologize in advance for any potential disruptions in the internet connection. Yes, please, Mr. Ban, start your presentation. Hello. I'm CFO of GMC. My name is Pan Yong-woo. So I would like to thank everybody for joining us in this meaningful business seminar, along with the two ministers from Sudan. And it's a great honor for me to introduce our company as a successful business case in this meaningful business seminar. Today, I will talk about the beginning of GMC, overview of our company and our production facility, our production items, and our vision. Let me talk about how GMC started. It started as a joint venture between POSCO International, Shimpung Pharmaceutical, and Maju Family Company of Sudan. Three partners came together in 1980, and Shimpung was producing anthelmintic, and by providing anthelmintic to Sudanese people, we realized the severity of the pain caused by schistosome. Such schistosome lives in the Nile River, and it can harass the people until their death. It's a very scary parasite. The three partners came together in order to save Sudanese life from schistosome, and we were looking for an effective and economically attractive solution. And Korean anthelmintic has been exported to Sudan, but there has been limits in terms of price and quantity. So we realized that importing the drug from Korea is not going to be the ultimate solution. Then we thought about building a pharmaceutical plant in Sudan as a fundamental solution. Three partners came together in 1987 and to produce anthelmintics in Sudan. This is the overview of GMC. So GMC started more as motivated by the desire to save the Sudanese people from the parasites. This is the overview of GMC as a company. The location of our company, we have two sites in Sudan. Factories is located in Khartoum near Nile River Cigarette Light Industry Complex, and our sales office is located at downtown Khartoum called Amarat. GMC was established in February of 1988. Well, we went into Africa many decades before a large number of Korean companies. And our partners were Maju Family. They have 34% of our equity. POSCO International is the largest trader and investor from Korea and has 33% of our equity. And I am an employee of POSCO International and currently working as a CFO of GMC. The third partner is Shimpung Pharmaceutical. You know, this is a very hot company, very popular pharmaceutical company in Korea, and it has 33% of the equity as well. Shimpun Pharmaceutical has dispatched the factory manager and sales office manager. Our areas of business activities include pharmaceutical manufacturing, and our products, we used to produce only one type of anthelmintic, but now we are producing 100 items, and our products range from tablets, capsules, dry syrups, ointment, and we have anti-high blood pressure, anti-diabetic drugs, as well as antihistamine agents. Our factory is located in 6,000 square meters, and we produce 120 million capsules, 2.5 million tubes of ointment, and 3.5 million bottles of dry syrup every year. And this is our operating capital and revenue, and we employ 200 people. So this is our factory facility. We have 4 types of production facility. We have 3 sets of capsule filling machines, and we also have 4 sets of tablet filling machines. that produces 120 million tablets per year. We have one line of ointment line, and we have one line of syrup line with a capacity to produce 3.5 million bottles per year. So I've briefly talked about the facility of our plant, and now I will show you. This is inside our plant. This is mixing the raw materials for tablet product production. This is a larger scale mixer. And the raw material from the mixer is passed on to this tablet producing machine. This machine is a high-speed dryer that removes the humidity from the tablets. This is the tablet filling machine. So you can see tablets being produced. So the tablets are now being coated in the coating machine. As for the coated tablets, they are now being packaged. This is the capsule filling machine. So the raw materials for the capsules are filled here. So this is the blister machine that packages the capsules. This is the dry syrup line. The two machines on the top are filling powders inside the bottles. And the bottles are capped here. And then tested. This is inspection. And labeling process. This is the ointment line. This is supplying tubes to the filling machine. And this is filling the tubes with ointment. And the tubes will be sealed at the bottom. This is the testing lab for chemical analysis. And bioadaptability test. This is the data analysis part of our lab. Our labs have the most advanced testing equipment, but because of the time, I have to finish my video here, and I would like to move on to my PowerPoint slides. Let me talk about our product items. The first product that we registered and sold is called Destocide. This is our first anti-parasite drug. And we started with one item, but now we have diversified into 100 items and became one of the leading pharmaceutical company in Sudan. So in case of tablets, we have antibiotics, anti-diabetic, anti-hypertensive, antihistamines, about 70 of those. And Cephal antibiotics are next generation antibiotics, and we have penicillin antibiotics, and we have about 30 of the capsule and ointment and syrups. These are the pictures of our products. The first picture is our tablet products. And Girocin is an antibiotics product, and capsules include Seracin, and that's also an antibiotic, and ointment and dry syrups, powder products actually. Next. Let me share the vision of our company. In Sudan, we want to be a comprehensive pharmaceutical manufacturer, and we are also planning to build another next-generation plant for producing next-generation antibiotics. And then we will also start producing health supplements. There are also medical products. Before we begin to develop a disease, we need to promote our general health so that we can prevent the outbreak of disease. And we are going to produce vitamin-type supplements and extracts from nature. And we are also going to develop drugs for livestock. As the two ministers have mentioned, livestock is a very important industry for Sudan, and there's a strong need for livestock medicine. But the imported medicine is expensive, so we want to produce more affordable pharmaceutical products for livestock. So with these three steps, we will become a comprehensive healthcare pharmaceutical manufacturer of Sudan. And in order to realize our vision into a reality, of course, we will do our best, but we also need institutional support from the Sudanese government. Up until now, the Sudanese government has been protecting the domestic pharmaceutical companies successfully, and it has helped us greatly to grow to our current size. And I would like to thank the two ministers for their support. And I hope you can continue to protect the domestic pharmaceutical companies of Sudan. And if you can strengthen the support for domestic pharmaceutical companies, I think we'll be able to replace more pharmaceutical imports with more affordable and competitive products produced in Sudan. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Mr. Ban. Because of the internet connection, we had to change the order of the presentation. Now we are going to invite Director Kim Jae-woo from Kotra, Khartoum, of Sudan. He will talk about the current status and future vision of Korean corporations in Sudan. I would like to apologize in advance for any potential disruptions in the internet connection. Thank you very much, and please start, Director Kim.
Please start. We cannot hear you. Director Kim Jae-woo, would you like to start? Should I start? Yes, please go ahead. Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Jae-woo, Director of Kotra Khartoum Trade Center. I am giving my greeting from far away, Sudan. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to President Yeo Eun-gi of Korea Africa Foundation, and also I'd like to express my thanks to His Excellency Ibrahim Al-Sheikh and also His Excellency Al-Hadi Mohammad Ibrahim. Probably you are still suffering from jet lag, but thank you so much for coming all the way to Korea. And also Ambassador Lee Sang-jae, the Ambassador of Korea to Sudan, thank you so much for once again co-hosting Korea-Sudan Business Seminar. Before I begin my presentation, I'd like to once again let you know that if you have any questions, let me know. I'll do my best in answering your questions. If my answer is not sufficient, then please contact me via my email and I will do my best in giving you a sufficient answer. Please go to the page 2. So, my presentation is comprised of, first of all, general information to be followed by major changes taking place in Sudan. Third, entry strategy and also promising products, which are the result of SWOT analysis that our office has done. If you go to the next page, I'll now touch upon the general information. When we think about the continent Africa, we believe that it's a one simple continent. However, African continent is comprised of total of 54 countries. Africa continent is the second largest continent after Asia. The continental area is about 30.2 million square kilometer. And if you look at the total length, Sudan to Johannesburg is about 7-hour flight. And also, there are diverse ethnicities as well as different nationalities. So actual size of the African continent is really huge. If you go to the northern eastern part, before Sudan became an independent country, it was the largest one. And still, if you look at and compare the size of the northern eastern Africa with that of the Eastern European country, Africa is huge. And there are abundant resources, and Sudan has diverse resources like gold, livestock, and Nile. And probably Ozma Toms might be the first novel that you might think about. And also, during the time when father worked in Sudan, that was before the independence. Now if you look at 2011, ever since Southern Sudan became independent, the total population is about 42 million. According to this statistic, some says that the total population is about 45 million. Sudan is a vast country, and around the area of the river Nile, mostly it's agricultural industry, but also there's a desert and remote area, and they have like gold, copper, diverse other mineral resources. Once again, just like other African countries, there are more than 100 tribes and also multiracial and different languages. However, from early time, Sudan had an Islamic culture, so their common language is Islam, so Friday and Saturday are the weekend. And also, the high-ranking government officials, they are very fluent in English as well. Let's go to page 5. Let me share with you the Sudan economic indicators. The Sudan economic indicators were published by different international organizations as well as Korean, KITA, and other agencies. So, what I can say is that the major economic indicators, they're so diverse, so do not take them one by one why there are differences, but look at them as an average. GDP is about 1/50th of that of Korea. And the growth rate of the GDP as of year 2020, although because of the COVID-19, was minus 8.4%. This year, 2021, due to COVID-19 and also high inflation, it's about minus growth rate. However, as you know, the Sudanese government is very active in pushing economic reforms, and as you heard from the ministers of industry and also minister of the investment and international cooperation, they are determined to implement economic reform, which means that definitely starting from next year, this will turn around and they will record positive economic growth. What I'm deeply concerned about is actually inflation. Compared to the year before, about 412% of the inflation rate was recorded for about a year. However, if you look at foreign exchange rate, it's about $1 is around 400 Sudanese currency, 446, but before February, they had this fixed foreign exchange system, so it was about 55 pounds, so about 7 to 8 times differences between what it used to be before and what it is right now. So you have to understand that because of their foreign currency rate system change from fixed to the flexible one, and now as of July, about 11% of the inflation rate was recorded. And for about a year, if you look at around 30% on a monthly average of the inflation happens, but starting from July, the 30% of the inflation has begun to slow down. It's about around 10%. If you look at the trade volume, it's about 1% of Korea, and continuously the trade deficit is being recorded. If you look at their major trade partner is China and India, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Arab Emirates, just like and also Turkey, mostly the low-end market or the neighboring countries. So they are very active in doing the trade. The next are Korea and other countries. And Sudan, they mostly import the daily necessity or the essential products for the other industries. If you look at in my following slide, you can see that what are the major trade items. Let's go to the page 6. This slide shows the general overview of the Korea-Sudanese trade. Korea's entry into the Sudan focuses on the Sudan's economic reconstructions and industrial revitalization items. Export to Sudan in 2019 and 2020 were about $142 million, and as of this year, it was around something like 100 million. If you look at the major items are such as automobiles, parts, constructions, heavy equipment, which amount to about 70% of the total. And if you look at the circle, the China, India, Arab countries, their major items are consumer goods or food items, but major export items of Korea mainly the items that are directly connected to the Sudanese industry. Now, in case of the parts and components of the vehicle, Hyundai Kia Motors accounts for about 60% of the total. Mostly their items are like automotive batteries, tires, spare parts. Especially the mineral resources are abundant in Sudan, and they need heavy equipment and industry items, which Korean companies export. So once again, as Sudan's economy is revitalized, we are positive that these items will be further expanded. Let's go to page 8 that talks about the key changes taking place in Sudan. Politically, let's look at what changes are happening. As international communities are expecting, Sudan is taking a full speed to implement changes. The operation of the smooth transition system and establishment of democratic government is the most desirable things that we are witnessing, especially right after the transitional government was launched in December 2020. United States, after 28 years, finally decided to lift Sudan from the list of the sponsor of the terrorism country. So Iran, Syria, North Korea, there are 3 countries that are still on the list of the terrorism sponsor countries. In Paris, France, IMF, and international organizations have gathered together who have the bonds issued to Sudan. They decided to once again agree to relieve Sudanese debt. In case of Korea, next month there will be a bilateral, for the first time, exchanges of the personnel. So we already have hosted the high government officials meeting, and also Ambassador Lee Sang-jung of Korea to Sudan has also hosted the business forum in June. The meeting name was Korea-Sudan Business Partnership Forum. Now let's go to the economic field. As I have already explained, I will briefly touch upon the changes that are taking place in economy. Please look at the dark green color area. 2021 is regarded as a reform time. This is a time when the economic reform started, but more recently, the government subsidy were totally abolished, and there were industries like petroleum or bakeries or power, electricity. They will not be able to enjoy subsidy anymore, which resulted in high inflation. But still, this is an unavoidable situation, and we have a bright future, we believe, because the World Bank and IMF have promised to provide additional subsidies, and the inflation will be stabilized. And also, we believe that there is a bright future and also a strong recovery from the negative growth. Let's go to the page 10 that talks about the industry, what changes will happen. Sudan, as you know, has a really well-developed agriculture industry like livestock or other sectors, and they export actively to the neighboring countries. Now, promoting the land cultivations and also agricultural productivity, importing like fertilizers or agricultural machineries, we believe that there will be a huge demand in this sector. In regard to infrastructure, as His Excellencies of the Minister of the Industry and Ministry of the Investment of the International Cooperation have already mentioned, we believe that infrastructure will be in high demand, like power generation such as thermal, hydro, and solar power is urgently needed, and also the infrastructure such as port or other sector will be highly needed. Well, already it was mentioned by CFO Pan Yong-ho. In the area of the industry, we believe that all kinds of antibiotics, and also we believe the tropical infectious disease necessary medicines and repellents might be in need. And COICA and GMC are very active in providing help and also medical cooperations. And together with the GMC and COICA, diverse projects are being carried out, and we believe that the medical market will continuously expand it. And GMC and KOICA project will definitely contribute to the development of the medical market. Last but not least, in the area of the manufacturing industry, quite a bit of the Korean companies have already advanced into Sudanese, and also Korean companies' awareness is quite positive, and we expect to build a value chain in the regions based on the manufacturing industry. Page 11. Now let's take a look at the investment field. Sudanese governments, especially in charge of the investment, has been empowered with making decision. As you see, His Excellency Minister of Investment is there with you in Korea, and between the Korean companies and Sudanese companies, we already had a business forum, and also we have translated the Investment Act into Korean. And GMC has announced that it will increase its investment to Sudanese. And let's take a look at the market opportunities and also the promising fields. KOTRA has conducted SWOT analysis to understand the market opportunities, and we have analyzed into 4 ways: strength, opportunities, weakness, and threat. First of all, the strength. The greatest benefit is that Sudan is widely known as a market with a growth possible due to the young and cheap labor, also the satisfaction with the will to reform. However, it also has a weakness: lack of local information and also lack of the network. Therefore, the Korean companies' know-how is not enough, but KOTRA is working hard to fill the gaps and to provide more information to Korean companies, especially to facilitate Korean SMEs to advance into Sudan. We are working really hard day and night. And also the purchasing power is low, which means that most of the products are low cost. So in terms of the price competitiveness, Korean companies, other than the necessity, it's not easy for Korean companies to advance into Sudanese market because we have to have a heated competition with the Chinese or other low-end product. And now we believe that as an opportunity, there is a huge possibility of the advanced technology development, power generations, and Korean reputations and awareness is really positive, we believe, so that there's a high possibility for more companies to enter into Sudan. And as you see, that 2 highest rank ministers are now visiting Korea, which is a proof that they are very much interested in attracting Korean companies' investment. Lastly, about the threat. What kind of threat do we have? I'm not only talking about Sudan, but I'm talking about the whole world. There's a high logistic cost, delays in custom clearance or manufacturing environment and social infrastructure. I'm not only talking about Sudan, but it's overhaul in the whole world. So this could be another threat point. And in the past, the foreign exchange rate was very unstable, but during the past 2 to 3 months, the foreign exchange has been stabilized. So I believe that we will no longer regard foreign exchange as an unstable or a threat element. Next page. Page 14, I'd like to tell you about the overall promising area. So, KOTRA, we have analyzed what products are most promising. As I mentioned, automotive parts, and also as CFO Pan Yong-ho of GMC mentioned, medical devices and medicine, and also constructions, heavy equipment and parts, and mining equipment, chemical product, base plastic raw materials. These items are what Sudan mostly need. And also these are so-called the necessity product for the main Sudanese industry. Next page. In order to advance into the service industry, especially Sudan is very much eager to enter into the digitalizations. What product does Sudan need? Well, according to the Kutra's analysis, we believe IT-based solutions, infrastructure plan construction, especially the SOC, like various projects such as railway, road, water treatment, those things are necessity as much as possible. If it is allowable, we hope that the private companies' investment, including the large conglomerates and medium-sized investment, need to enter into the Sudanese government. Lastly, I don't know if there are any participants joining today from the banking sector. Still, transferring or wiring dollars to Sudan is quite difficult. Still, due to the financial regulation, as long as you have the Khartoum vocabulary mentions, then automatically the transaction is prohibited. But I hope that as the Sudan has already been lifted from the list of the sponsored terror nations, and since the Sudan is undergoing reform, please let everyone know and publicize that Sudan needs to be equipped with more liberalized financial system. Lastly, what I would like to emphasize is that Kotra, located in the capital city of Sudan, the employees of the Kotra, are working day and night to facilitate your entrance into Sudan. And there are areas that I have not been able to cover. I'm showing you my email address right now. Please write to me and I will answer any questions that you have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Director Kim, for the presentation. Our seminar is being carried out in interactive manner, and we will ask questions that have been already asked. I don't think we will be able to answer all the questions because of the limited time, and you can continue to leave questions in the chatting room. The first question is to Mr. Pan Yong-woo from GMC. What do you think is the market demand for bio and medical devices in Sudan? I'm a financial person, CFO, and I have to admit that I'm not an expert in bio or medical device market, but I will try to answer the question based on a common sense as a person who lives in Sudan. Bio industry I believe is an industry that can grow faster in an advanced country. And in Sudan, I cannot say bio industry has advanced. Bio pharmaceutical companies from Korea, I think you will have a lot of opportunities in Sudanese market. But I have to tell you that currently we don't have a big biopharmaceutical market in Sudan yet. And as for the medical device market, we have many hospitals in Sudan, but I'm not sure how many expensive medical devices they can afford now. But in the long term, this is a very promising area with a lot of growth potential. But right away, I'm not sure how many hospitals can afford to buy a lot of expensive medical devices. That's all I can answer for now. When it comes to medical devices, I would like to add a few words.
The Sudanese medical equipment market, as was mentioned by CFO Ban, is small comparatively speaking, but is very much likely to expand and grow, especially in the area of the imaging equipments or medical equipment for the dentistry. Korean industry has a huge potential, like imaging medical equipments. Mostly the German products and Korean products are dominantly preferred, and the image of Korean products are actually the highest among any other products. The price is quite reasonable from the Sudanese buyer. So I see a bright future. Compared to the other general market, Sudanese market is very unique. Medical professionals, their wage or their salary are not high, and they sometimes work as the importer of the medical equipment. So they work as medical professionals, but also they import the medical equipment. So they are fairly knowledgeable about the medical equipment. And as it was mentioned by CFO Pan, well, the purchasing is not high, but if you look at the life cycle of the medical equipment compared with the other products, they continuously maintain their product and use it. However, the parts and components for the medical products, as you know, the India and China are very active, and some of them are coming into the Sudanese market as a subsidy or support. So Korean companies have not been very active in this sector.
Thank you very much for the question and the answer. I have another question for Mr. Pan. For what kind of products are you planning to expand your production facility? The pharmaceutical market in Sudan is mainly for therapeutic drugs like antibiotics, and they account for more than 60% of our revenue. Antibiotics market is, as I've said, fairly big, and they are now moving towards next generation, higher quality antibiotics. In the past, penicillin was the most representative antibiotics, but the Korean market has moved to Separ, the Separin, the next generation antibiotics, and Sudan is also experiencing growth in the next generation antibiotics market. So we are planning to build a production facility that's dedicated to producing next generation antibiotics, and also we have no production of injection drugs in Sudan, so we are going to produce injection drugs in Sudan with the new facility. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Pan. Now we will move on to questions to Director Kim.
So please tell us about the demand from the Sudanese companies in the air conditioning system industry, such as air conditioners and dehumidifiers. Please answer. Well, Sudan, the weather is quite dry and high temperature. So dehumidifiers, there is no demand, I believe. In case of air conditioning system, well, it's about 10 a.m. and the temperature is over 35 degrees. So without air conditioner, we can hardly work or live. So the demand for air conditioner is high and is likely to continuously increase. Especially LG Electronic is very active. They operate their own office here in Sudan, and together with the Sudanese companies, air conditioners are really well sold.
Thank you very much, Director Kim. Now we will move on to questions to the ministers. So, ministers, please use the microphone to your right to answer the questions. First is to Minister of Industry of Sudan, Ibrahim Al-Sheikh.
In your keynote address, you talk about areas that have huge potentials, but what area or what industry is likely to have huge potentials of collaboration or cooperation? Please use microphone.
Question is that which field do you consider the most prospective to promote the business partnership between Korea and Sudan? Although it is not easier to choose one sector ignoring the others, but as I am the industrial minister, I choose industry sector as a prospective. This not means I'm biased to industry, but I can explain why I choose industry. Sudan is an agricultural economic, a huge land available, huge water from White Nile, Blue Nile available. We have a great experience in agriculture. So we don't, this is why I don't choose agriculture and I choose industry, because always we are talking about value added. Value added means industrializing the agricultural products. We have a lot of agricultural products such as simsim, cotton, Sudanese other nuts. All these products need value added. The factories can offer so many jobs. Agriculture will not offer these jobs needed by youth and women. We have so many factories we can establish it, making use of the knowledge of Korea, the know-how of Korea, skills of Korean, the human resource available in Korea. So this is why I choose industry, and I think we can manufacturing trains, trucks, ships, medical products, chemicals. There are so different fields of industry that we can choose, and we can promote our agricultural product or mines products or chemical products or all the resources available in Sudan. About the medical products, I think one of the speakers called for supporting the medical industry. I think, and I want to mention something very important. As a government, we decided already to nationalize the industry of medicine in Sudan. So we are going to protect the local industry, and we are going to impose more fees on the imported drugs that come from outside. This is to protect the local medicine produced inside. Somebody else said transaction is not, he said transaction is prohibited to Sudan. I think by now transaction is not prohibited anymore, especially after Sudan removed from the list of terrorism. Now we, after liberalizing and unified the rate of the exchange rate, a lot of Sudanese from outside, now they are transaction and sending their money through international banks. So this is not a problem anymore. I think industry will be the future of Sudan, and the real value added to all the productions we produce, or all items we produce inside. Thank you.
네, 장관님 답변 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now we have a question to Minister Al-Hadi Mohammed Ibrahim of Ministry of Investment and International Cooperation. The U.S. sanctions on Sudan have been lifted, and I would like to know if the actual foreign currency can flow in and out of the country freely.
Thank you very much for the question. Let me first of all explain that before equalizing the exchange rate, it's completely difficult for every investor in Sudan, whether he has an existing premises or a potential investor, to come into Sudan and inject his capital to invest in Sudan. Because simply there are 2 or 3 parallel market rates, that the official rate of the government is 55 Sudanese SDG. The parallel market rate at that time is not that more than 200 SDG. So nobody can actually inject his capital just in order to exchange that money for this very small amount. And even for those who are the Sudanese working abroad, rather than sending their money through the official banks, they just try to go to the parallel market to sell their money. Now, equalizing the exchange rate have so many benefits. First of all, that every incoming foreign currency, it will be actually come through the official banking. And that one of the reasons, as I mentioned in my letter, starting from the policy that we have laid in March 2021, that the exchange rate increment is not less than more than 7%, between 5 to 7% in the official time that the government took a decision for equalizing the exchange rate. This is number 1. For the investment side, it is right now the investor can transfer his proceeds of profits through the official banking system, rather than to go to the parallel market and then try to get the money for his profit to be transferred outside Sudan. And for our expatriate and Sudanese in the diaspora, they have really transferring their money to their families through the official banking system. Starting from applying this policy, till now, the Central Bank of Sudan now have a reserve of 1.2 billion US dollars, and also the Bank of Sudan, through other policies of trade policies, hindering and restating the exports revenue through the official banking system. Now also the Bank of Sudan has gained more foreign currency coming from exports. And even the Bank of Sudan built gold reserve to meet any collateral for investment. So the policy itself is very good policy, and it is a wise policy that now restate the exchange rate, stabilize it, and make there is a possibility for investors to move their capital to Sudan and try to invest in the potential projects that have been mentioned. One point I want to actually raise here regarding the threats that had been mentioned by the JMC director in Sudan, and Kotra also, they have mentioned that when they analyze the situation in Sudan is that there are some threats, market threats, regarding, for example, till now, there is, in a way or another, that there is instability or there is financial instability. I could possibly say that right now, all the macroeconomic indicators which I have mentioned, they are moving towards stabilizing the economy. Inflation is decreasing. And everybody, now you look at the market in the Sudan, for example, for goods and services, you will find that goods and services retreated. Prices have been decreased because the optimal prices had been announced when we actually equalize the exchange rate. The gap is huge between the official and the market rate at that time. But the economy had been stabilized by the force of supply and demand for foreign currency. Foreign currency had been increased through the official banking system. And as I mentioned, that some Sudanese people who have are working abroad, they transfer their money, and even some exports that right now coming through the right channels. And this had stabilized the economy. So one can expect that decreased inflation will continue, and that even some studies mention that by the first quarter of 2021, inflation will go to, instead of 3 figures, it will go to 2 figures. Now, inflation is 3 figures, that is over 300. When we retreat back to 2 figures, that means it will be below 100. And at that time, if you add the agricultural products that we are having in this season and our increment in exports and reduce imports in some commodities, which is not essential, and that concentrate on essential goods, this might reduce demand for foreign currency and increase our exports. Now the balance of trade, it will be improved, and at the same time, economic indicators will be restated and give a good sign. Regarding, the sanctions, lifting the sanctions from Sudan has so many benefits that we received from World Bank a subsidy of not less than $2 billion US dollars. This will effectively be influenced in 2022, and this will actually affect the economy. If you are right now talking about -1 increment increase in GDP, we expect that the economy will grow by 1.5% GDP starting from February 2022 and onwards. We have, that is in the pipeline, almost 6 projects financed fully, sponsored by the World Bank. For oil and energy, almost 780 million US dollars, and for water, agriculture and irrigation, that is almost 575 million US dollars, and for health and education, about $300 million, and subsidy for Ministry of Finance, about $500 million, and even for Ministry of Investment and International Cooperation, there is a project for women and youth entrepreneurship with $100 million. This project will start from January 2022. Now, the PRU unit, that is the project implementation unit, had fully been implemented, and we have assigned that the director for this unit, and we are actually fully operating in January 22. So the sanction, lifting the sanction from Sudan, first of all, re-engage Sudan into the international community. And this re-engagement makes Sudan eligible for having assistance from his brothers, that is from the international community. And the Sudan had been one of the members of the IMF and World Bank. Now we have recovered our seat, and that we are enjoying and benefiting from the assistance that will be given, the technical and financial assistance by these international cooperations. Thank you.
네, 장관님 답변 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much. That concludes the Q&A session. Due to the limited time, we apologize that we weren't able to cover all the questions. Thank you once again, all the speakers as well as all the participants.
Now, it is time to wrap up Korea-Sudan Business Web Seminar. Because of the COVID-19, we had to have this meeting online and not offline. But still, I think we have managed to share a lot of valuable information. I look forward to your continued interest and support for the various activities carried out by Korea Africa Foundation. Thank you very much for your attention.